Welcome back to Lore with Grandpa Ben. Today we're diving deep into one of the most hauntingly beautiful worlds created in recent gaming history, Clair Obscur Expedition 33. This is not a story about traditional heroes saving the world. This is a chronicle of a painted reality where grief reshapes existence itself, where art becomes both prison and salvation, and where the line between creator and creation dissolves into pigment and memory. Over the next 2 hours, we'll explore every corner of this surreal Belle Epoque-inspired realm. We'll uncover the truth behind the fracture, examine the magic systems that define this world, meet the creatures both friendly and hostile that inhabit the continent, and understand the tragic family drama that spawned an apocalypse. This is pure lore, extracted from journals left by dozens of failed expeditions, from conversations with mysterious beings seeking purpose, from the painted memories embedded in every surface of this dying world. Let us begin at the beginning, before the counting started, before the monolith cast its shadow across the sky. The world before, Paris of the painters. Our story begins not in the painted world of Lumière, but in early 20th century Paris, not the Paris of our history, but an alternate Paris where magic exists, not as fireballs and lightning bolts, but as something far more subtle and infinitely more dangerous, the power to paint reality itself. In this Paris lived the Dessendre family, wealthy and prestigious, known among certain circles as masters of an extraordinary gift. The Dessendres were painters, not artists who merely captured images on canvas, but individuals who possessed the ability to create canvases, entire pocket dimensions contained within works of art, worlds that could be entered, inhabited, and shaped according to their creator's will. The family patriarch was Renoir Dessendre, a skilled painter, though not naturally gifted. He had learned everything he knew from his wife, Aline Dessendre, who stood as the true master of the family's art. Aline served as head of the Painters' Council, an organization that governed those with such reality-warping abilities. Her skills surpassed perhaps anyone living in that age. Together, they had painted hundreds of canvases, exploring the boundaries of what their gift could achieve. They had 3 children. Clea, the eldest daughter, inherited her mother's prodigious talent and approached painting with precision and calculated purpose. Verso, the middle child and only son, possessed the gift but found his passion elsewhere in music, becoming a skilled pianist and guitarist. But Alicia, the youngest, who painted alongside her sister Clea, learning the family art under their mother's instruction. The painters existed in conflict with another group, the writers, who could reshape reality through written word rather than visual art. Evidence suggests this conflict had persisted for generations, occasionally erupting into open violence. This tension between 2 philosophies of creation would eventually prove catastrophic for the Dessendre family. Canvas creation came at a price that every painter understood. Each canvas required a piece of the painter's soul, a fragment of their essential being invested into the work to give it permanence and substance. The more complex the canvas, the greater the sacrifice required. Additionally, painters risked becoming lost in their own creations, the boundary between artist and artwork dissolving until the creator became trapped within their creation. Aline herself had once rescued Renoir from a canvas that had ensnared him, teaching him afterward how to paint safely, how to, in her words, soar without flying too close to the sun. This warning would prove tragically ironic, as Aline herself would eventually fly too close to the sun of her own grief. The canvas that would ultimately destroy the Dessendre family began innocently. Young Verso, in his childhood, created a world based on his favorite things. He transformed his stuffed toy into Esquisse, a giant marshmallow-like creature capable of soaring through skies and diving beneath seas. His family's dog Monaco, along with their younger pup Noco, became the template for an entire species of dog-like humanoid beings called Gestrals. Friendly, combat-loving, simple-minded, and loyal creatures, who would populate his painted world. In this early canvas, Verso and his sisters would play, adventuring with the creatures he had made, exploring landscapes that shifted according to the stories they wanted to tell. Clea contributed her own creations to the canvas, expanding it alongside her brother. It was harmless childhood imagination given form and dimension, the last moment of pure innocence the family would know. On the 33rd of December 1905, everything ended. The writers struck at the Dessendre home, setting a fire that consumed the manor. In the chaos and flames, young Elisha found herself trapped. Verso, hearing her screams, rushed into the inferno without hesitation. He reached her, pushed her toward safety through a window, and then the building collapsed upon him. Verso Dessendre died saving his sister. Elisha survived, but the fire left her scarred, her face disfigured, one eye blinded, her voice stolen by smoke and flame. She lived, but the trauma of that night and the guilt of survival would mark her forever. The family shattered in different ways. Clea channeled her grief into cold determination, focusing on the war with the writers with renewed intensity. Renoir mourned but tried to hold what remained of his family together, but Aline could not accept that Verso was gone. She entered Verso's childhood canvas and found there a fragment of his soul that remained, the piece he had invested when creating the work. It was not truly Verso, but it held his memories, his personality, enough of him to feel almost real. In her overwhelming grief, Aline decided this fragment was enough. She began painting within Verso's canvas, expanding it, adding complexity and detail. She created painted versions of her entire family, a painted Verso who would never leave her again, a painted Renoir who would never question her choices, painted versions of Clea and Elisha as she wished them to be. She built what appeared to be an idealized world where her son still lived, where her family remained whole, and she chose to live in that painted lie rather than face the unbearable truth of reality. Days in the canvas passed as hours in the real world, a temporal dilation that allowed her to spend subjective years with her false family, while only days passed outside. But even this distortion could not hide forever what she was doing. When Renoir realized his wife had retreated into a grief-induced delusion, dwelling in their dead son's canvas and abandoning her living family, he made the hardest choice of his life. He entered Verso's canvas to bring her back. What happened next would reshape an entire world. The fracture, when reality tore asunder, 67 years before the events of the game, on the day that would become known as Monolith Year 100, something catastrophic occurred. The event is remembered simply as the fracture, and its effects were immediate and apocalyptic. From the perspective of those living in what would become known as Lumière, the experience was of reality itself breaking. The ground shook with earthquake force. The sky darkened. Massive chunks of land broke away from the larger continent, rising into the air as if gravity had been reversed. Buildings cracked and collapsed. Families were torn apart, as some found themselves on the rising landmass while others remained on the stable ground. Lumière, a section of the painted world representing Paris, was violently separated from the rest of the continent and hurled across a vast painted ocean, crashing down far from its original location. The dome shield, a protective barrier that had existed to defend against hostile forces, prevented total destruction during the transition, but it could do nothing to stop the separation itself. When the shaking stopped and the world stabilized, Lumière found itself isolated on an island in the middle of an ocean. In the distance, visible on the horizon, stood a structure that had not existed before, a massive monolith, impossibly tall and impossibly thin, rising from the continent like a needle piercing the sky. And at the base of this monolith sat a giant figure painted in white and gray, the Paintress. The Paintress was a massive wooden mannequin, tens of thousands of feet tall to be visible from such distance, with long white hair and an empty space where her face should be. She sat motionless, and painted on the surface of the monolith behind her was a single number, 100. The surviving inhabitants of Lumière did not immediately understand what they were seeing, For 15 years, they rebuilt, processed their trauma, and attempted to understand their new isolation. The Paintress did not move. The number did not change. Ships were constructed to reach the continent, but the journey was perilous, and most who attempted it never returned. Then, 15 years after the fracture, on its anniversary, the Paintress woke from her slumber. She rose from her seated position, took up her enormous brush, and painted a new number over the old, 99, and everyone who had lived 99 years or more turned to smoke and flower petals, vanishing completely from existence. This was the first gommage, the French word for erasure, or rubbing out. The horror of this event cannot be overstated. Those who were gommage did not simply die and leave behind bodies to mourn. They ceased to exist in a way that affected memory itself. Within days, even close family members struggled to recall the faces of those who had been erased. Within weeks, only vague impressions remained, a sense of absence, an empty chair at a table, a name that no one could quite remember belonging to anyone they knew. Lumière was forced to confront an impossible reality. The Paintress would wake every year and paint a new number, counting down from 99. Every year another age would be claimed. Eventually, unless something changed, the number would reach 0, and humanity would be completely erased. They had 99 years to find a solution. Based on information that can be pieced together from expedition journals and environmental storytelling, it appears the fracture was connected to the conflict between Renoir and Alain within Verso's canvas. When Renoir entered the canvas to force Alain to return to reality, she appears to have used her considerable power to protect the portion of the canvas she valued most, Lumière, by separating it from the continent where Renoir was manifesting his power. This catastrophic act of protective magic created the fracture, physically dividing the painted world. The monolith itself seems to be Alain's creation, a structure where she could concentrate her power, and from which the Paintress, a construct she created, could paint the warning numbers. Evidence suggests these numbers were never meant to announce who would be killed, but rather to warn how many more years remained before Renoir's power grew strong enough to erase everything at once. This interpretation is supported by late-game revelations about the true nature of the conflict, though the exact mechanism of the fracture remains somewhat mysterious even to those who complete the game. The Gommage Cycle, life under the countdown. Following the first Gommage, Lumière's society had to adapt to a reality where everyone knew the maximum age they could reach. In Monolith Year 33, when the game takes place, no one alive is older than 33 years. The eldest members of society are erased each year, creating a cascading effect where civilization constantly loses its most experienced members, its historians, its long-term planners. This creates profound social and psychological changes. Families face impossible mathematics. A 20-year-old who has a child in year 33 will die before that child turns 8, and the child will die at 18 at the oldest. Many choose not to have children at all. Birth rates have plummeted. Lumière's population shrinks not just through the gommage, but through collective despair and the logical decision to not bring children into such a world. Education has been radically compressed. Children are pushed into apprenticeships by age 7 or 8, learning trades and professions with desperate speed, trying to contribute before they might be erased. Childhood as a protected period of innocence has nearly disappeared. Everyone is expected to be useful, to contribute, to prepare simultaneously for death and for the possibility of survival. The city of Lumière itself is a painted version of Paris, featuring recognizable landmarks transformed by the canvas's surreal nature. A melted Eiffel Tower leans at an impossible angle, twisted as if it were made of wax and partially liquefied, a symbol of how trauma warps even the most solid foundations. The architecture follows Belle Epoque aesthetics, buildings adorned with Art Nouveau curves and ironwork, streets arranged in patterns that echo actual Parisian districts, but compressed into a smaller, more intimate scale. The dome shield that protected Lumière during the fracture still functions, a translucent barrier visible as a shimmer in the sky when light hits it at certain angles. This shield keeps out the worst threats from the continent, primarily the Nevrons, hostile creatures that we'll discuss in detail later, but it cannot protect against the Gommage itself. The Paintress's power operates on a different level than mere physical threats. Each year before an expedition departs, Lumière holds the Festival de l'Expedition. This event serves multiple purposes: a celebration of life while life remains, a farewell to those accepting the call to journey to the continent, and a distraction from the annual terror of the approaching Gommage. The festival features food, wine, music, and games, but underneath the forced gaiety runs a current of desperation that everyone feels but few acknowledge directly. During one such festival in the prologue, we witness Gustave spending time with his former lover Sophie, who is 33 years old and will be erased in the imminent Gommage. Their interactions reveal the emotional reality of living in Lumière. Relationships are formed knowing they will end prematurely. Love is experienced with the certainty of loss, and every moment carries the weight of limited time. The social structure has adapted in other ways as well. A town-wide foster system exists where older residents adopt younger ones, creating surrogate family units as the Gommage constantly orphans children. Gustave himself serves as foster father to Meadows, who is 16 years his junior, having adopted her after her parents were erased when she was 3 years old. Those who feel the call to join an expedition experience it as an overwhelming compulsion, a certainty that they must go, that their purpose lies in the journey to the continent. This compulsion, we later learn, originates from Renoir manifesting as the curator, selecting individuals he believes have the best chance of reaching him and helping achieve his goals. The called cannot truly refuse. They can resist for a time, but the compulsion grows stronger, making normal life impossible until they accept and depart. Expedition members are treated with complex emotions by those who remain. Some view them as heroes who might succeed where all others failed, who might end the Gommage and save humanity. Others see them as fools throwing away their last year of life on an impossible mission, since every single expedition over 67 years has failed to return with survivors or success. The motto of the expeditions crystallizes their purpose for those who come after, even knowing they will likely die, even understanding that failure is almost certain. Expedition members leave markers, journals, supplies, and cleared paths for future groups. Each expedition builds on the work of those before, setting up expedition flags that serve as rest points, leaving warnings about dangers, documenting what they learn. It is cooperation across time, each doomed group helping the next doomed group get slightly farther, achieve slightly more, learn slightly more truth. This tradition represents humanity's resilience in the face of existential dread. They cannot stop the countdown, cannot prevent the Gommage, cannot escape the painted world they inhabit, but they can choose how they face the inevitable, can decide that their deaths will have meaning, that their sacrifice will contribute to eventual success, even if they never witness it. Wine so redded, Expedition Zero, the first to walk the painted path. The first organized journey to the continent occurred 15 years after the fracture, in what was then called Monolith Year 85. This initial expedition was not yet numbered according to the countdown. It was called Expedition Zero, establishing the naming convention that would be followed by all subsequent groups. Expedition Zero was unique in several crucial ways. Unlike later expeditions composed primarily of volunteers accepting a mysterious call, Expedition Zero was a military force. The knights of old Lumière, trained warriors accustomed to combat and hardship, formed the core of the expedition. They possessed discipline, training, and most importantly, powerful Pictos that gave them combat capabilities far beyond ordinary citizens. Among Expedition Zero's members was Renoir, though the expedition did not know him as one of the painters who had created their world. To them, he appeared simply as a driven and skilled commander. Also present was Verso, specifically the painted version of Verso that Aline had created, who presented himself as a young man who had survived the fracture and possessed valuable knowledge about the continent. According to the fragmentary information available from journals and environmental clues, Expedition Zero pushed farther than anyone thought possible. They reached the monolith itself, ascending its impossible heights, climbing through increasingly dangerous regions as they rose. Some members of Expedition Zero reached the top of the monolith and confronted the Paintress directly. What exactly transpired in that confrontation remains unclear, as detailed records did not survive. However, Expedition Zero also descended into the depths beneath the monolith, discovering secrets that would later prove crucial. They learned information about the monolith's true nature, about the forces at work behind the Gommages, about the conflict between powerful entities that most inhabitants of Lumière could not comprehend. When survivors of Expedition Zero returned to Lumière, they brought this vital intelligence. However, they also brought tragedy. In their subjective experience, they had spent months on the continent, but time dilation meant that in Lumière, a full year had passed. Some expedition members had aged into the range that would be erased in the next Gommages. The moment they crossed back into Lumière's boundaries, they were Gommages, erased mid-step, vanishing before the eyes of their horrified companions. The survivors who made it far enough to deliver their findings reported that the Paintress could not be destroyed by conventional means, that she was protected by barriers no existing Pictos could breach, and that the situation was far more complicated than a simple monster that needed to be slain. Expedition Zero also confirmed something that would define the next 6 decades. Certain individuals had achieved immortality through unknown means. Both Renoir and Painted Verso did not age, did not die from injuries that would kill normal humans, persisting through the years while everyone around them grew older and was eventually erased. The expedition left flags and markers throughout their journey, establishing expedition flags at key locations. These flags would serve future expeditions as rest points, places where they could heal, prepare, and strategize. The flags bore the number 0, marking them as the first group's legacy. Expedition Zero's partial success and partial tragedy established the pattern that would repeat for 67 years. Expeditions would venture forth with hope, would make progress and gain knowledge, would suffer terrible losses, and would contribute to a growing body of understanding that each subsequent group could build upon. The painted world. Understanding the canvas. To fully comprehend the lore of Clair Obscur, we must understand what a canvas actually is and how it functions. A canvas is not a simulation or virtual reality in any conventional sense. It is a genuine pocket dimension, a complete world with its own physical laws, its own time flow, its own substance and reality. The beings within it are not holograms or illusions. They possess consciousness, can experience pain and joy, can grow and change and learn and die. For all practical purposes, they are alive. However, they are also fundamentally painted, which means they exist according to rules established by their creator and can be modified or erased through sufficient application of painter power. The canvas that contains Lumière and the continent originated as Verso's childhood creation, a world built from imagination and innocence. Later, Clair contributed to it, adding her own creations and expanding certain regions. Finally, Aline massively augmented it after Verso's death, transforming a simple childhood canvas into a vast and complex world where she could live indefinitely. This layering of creation gave the canvas unusual properties. Different regions bear the distinctive marks of different painters. Some areas reflect Verso's childlike whimsy, talking animals, friendly monsters, landscapes that defy physics in playful ways. Other areas show Clair's more methodical and militaristic approach, structured enemies, defensive positions, logical layouts. Still others display Aline's overwhelming artistic skill, breathtaking vistas, emotionally evocative environments, details rendered with such precision, they seem more real than reality. Everything in the canvas is made of chroma, the fundamental paint substance of reality itself. Chroma is simultaneously energy and matter, the building block from which all things in the canvas are constructed. When beings die in the canvas, their chroma typically dissipates, returning to the ambient pool of energy that sustains the dimension. This chroma can then be reused by painters to create new things, to repair damage, to maintain the canvas's stability. However, the total chroma supply within a canvas is finite. A canvas can only hold so much, and once that chroma is depleted, the canvas begins to collapse. The dimension becomes unstable, reality breaks down, and eventually the entire pocket universe unravels completely. This is the mechanism behind Renoir's strategy, which we can infer from the game's revelations. By systematically erasing beings from the canvas through the Gommage, he removes their chroma from a line's available pool. Each erasure weakens her, reduces her ability to maintain and defend the canvas, brings her closer to the point where she will lack sufficient power to resist his efforts to force her out. The inhabitants of the canvas possess varying degrees of awareness about their nature. The painted versions of the Dessendre family know they are creations. Painted Verso understands this explicitly and possesses enough of the real Verso's soul fragment to question his existence and purpose. The Gestrals were created knowing they were painted, designed as companions rather than as beings meant to believe themselves natural. The humans of Lumière, however, were painted with complete memories and histories, designed to believe they had always existed, that their world had always been real. After the fracture, as the canvas's true nature became impossible to ignore, these inhabitants had to confront the existential horror of learning they were art, created beings rather than naturally evolved life. This revelation affects different characters in different ways. Some, like Lune, approach it intellectually, treating it as a puzzle to solve and information to catalog. Others, like Gustave, focus on the practical implications rather than the philosophical ones. Still others struggle with the meaning and value of their existence once they understand it was designed rather than emergent. The game does not provide easy answers to whether painted beings are real. They think, therefore they are, but they are also literally art, dependent on their canvas and its creator for continued existence. This ambiguity is central to the game's themes, Chroma and Pictos, the magic of painted reality. Now we must delve deeper into the magic system that defines how inhabitants of the canvas interact with their world and survive its dangers. Chroma is life force, paint energy, the substance from which everything in the canvas is made. It flows through living beings like blood, sustaining them, allowing them to move and think and grow. All creatures in the canvas contain chroma in varying concentrations. Living beings possess more than inanimate objects, and more powerful beings contain higher quality chroma than weaker ones. When Nevrons, the hostile creatures we'll discuss shortly, are defeated, their bodies release chroma that can be collected. This chroma serves as currency when dealing with Gestral merchants, can be refined to strengthen equipment, and represents literal life energy that can be redirected to other purposes. However, chroma alone is not enough to perform supernatural feats. To manipulate chroma in useful ways requires Pictos. Pictos, the term is both singular and plural, are glowing glyphs that encode specific functions. They can be carved into flesh, inscribed onto objects, or created temporarily for single use. Each Pictos has a narrow, defined purpose. One might allow the user to summon a specific weapon from nothing. Another enables grappling across distances. A third permits healing of wounds at the cost of the user's chroma reserves. Creating a Pictos requires deep understanding of chroma manipulation, artistic skill to inscribe the patterns correctly, and often painful self-modification when the Pictos is being carved into living flesh. Members of expeditions literally carve chroma patterns into their bodies, cutting glyphs into their skin. which then heal while maintaining the Pictos within the scar tissue. This process is agonizing but necessary. Without Pictos, humans in the canvas are limited to baseline physical abilities. With Pictos, they become capable of superhuman feats. According to the game's systems and lore, each person can typically maintain only 3 active Pictos at a time. The human mind and body have limits to how much foreign chroma patterning they can sustain simultaneously. 3 appears to be the maximum for most individuals, though exceptional people might push to 4 or 5 with extensive training and exceptional willpower. Pictos come in almost limitless varieties, each serving different functions. Combat Pictos enhance physical capabilities, increased strength, allowing massive weapons to be wielded, heightened speed for rapid movement, improved durability to withstand powerful attacks. Elemental Pictos grant manipulation of forces, fire generation and control, ice creation, lightning channeling, and other energies that can damage enemies or alter the environment. Utility Pictos provide non-combat benefits, object storage allowing weapons to be summoned and dismissed at will, wound healing that accelerates recovery, enhanced senses that detect hidden threats. Specialized Pictos offer unique effects tailored to specific situations or fighting styles. Some increase damage when fighting alone, others grant bonuses when protecting allies, still others trigger powerful effects when specific conditions are met. When a Pictos is used repeatedly in combat, specifically after winning 4 battles with it equipped, something remarkable occurs. The user begins to internalize its patterns, understanding the chroma flow so thoroughly that they can replicate the effect even without the Pictos actively equipped. This internalized version is called a Lumina. Luminas represent passive effects derived from mastered Pictos, where a Pictos must be actively equipped, consuming one of the 3 available slots. A Lumina becomes part of the user's permanent repertoire. However, there is a limitation. Each person has a maximum amount of Lumina complexity they can maintain, measured in Lumina points. Simple Luminas might cost only 1 or 2 Lumina points. For example, a Lumina that provides a small amount of health regeneration each turn. Complex, powerful Luminas cost many more points. A Lumina that doubles damage output when certain conditions are met might cost 5 or more points. Users must carefully balance which Luminas they activate, creating builds that reflect their preferred fighting style and strategic approach. Each character gains 1 additional Lumina point when they level up, and additional points can be obtained by collecting items called Colors of Lumina scattered throughout the world or rewarded for defeating powerful enemies. Gustave's great innovation, the creation that made Expedition 33 special, was the Lumina Converter. This device represents years of research and development in chroma manipulation technology. The converter can absorb chroma from defeated Nevrons, analyze the Pictos patterns encoded within them, and create artificial Luminas that can be shared among the entire expedition. This bypasses the normal limitation where each person must individually master a Pictos through repeated use. Instead of Gustave having to use a specific Pictos in 4 battles before learning its Lumina, and then Lune having to repeat the process, and then Sile and so on, the converter allows instant sharing. Gustave defeats a Nevron, the converter extracts and analyzes its chroma pattern, and suddenly the entire expedition has access to that Lumina. This multiplies the expedition's effective power exponentially. Where previous expeditions might have had access to a few dozen Luminas total across all their members, Expedition 33 can accumulate hundreds of Luminas, mixing and matching them to create optimized builds for any situation. The Lumina Converter is why Expedition 33 ultimately succeeds where 67 years of previous attempts failed. It represents a technological breakthrough that fundamentally changes the power balance, giving relatively inexperienced expedition members access to abilities that would normally take decades of combat experience to accumulate. Lumière, City of Fading Light. Let us examine Lumière in greater detail, understanding both its geography and its culture under the shadow of the countdown. Lumière is an artificial Paris, a painted version of the real city created by Dessendre with loving attention to detail. It bears unmistakable marks of its inspiration. There stands the Eiffel Tower, though melted and twisted as if made of wax exposed to intense heat, leaning at an angle that should cause it to collapse but which holds through painted physics. The architecture follows Belle Epoque aesthetics precisely. Buildings adorned with Art Nouveau curves and decorative ironwork, streets arranged in patterns that echo actual Parisian districts, monuments and fountains that reference real landmarks. But Lumière is not Paris. It is smaller, condensed, a city island rather than a sprawling metropolis. The population numbers in the thousands rather than millions. Everyone knows everyone, if not personally, then at least by reputation and connection. It is a community forced into intimacy by isolation and shared doom. The city's physical infrastructure reflects its unique challenges. The dome shield shimmers overhead, a translucent barrier that becomes visible when light strikes it at certain angles. This shield requires constant chroma to maintain, and engineering teams work continuously to keep the generators functioning. Without the shield, nevrons from the continent could potentially cross the ocean and attack Lumière directly. The harbor district where we begin the game during the prologue serves as the departure point for expeditions. Ships are maintained here, designed specifically for the dangerous crossing to the continent. These vessels must be sturdy enough to survive the painted ocean's unpredictable nature. Storms that materialize instantly, waves that move in impossible directions, creatures that dwell in the depth. During the Festival de l'Expedition, this harbor area transforms into a celebration space. Vendors set up stalls selling food and wine. Musicians perform throughout the day and into the evening. Games of chance and skill attract participants trying to win prizes with tokens. The atmosphere attempts to project joy and hope, though everyone present understands they are celebrating people who will almost certainly die in the coming weeks. One particularly interesting detail from the prologue: Antoine, a Lumière resident, administers a quiz to test knowledge of the city's history. His questions reveal information that inhabitants are expected to know. When was the fracture? The correct answer is 67 years ago, in Monolith year 100. Which was the first expedition to depart for the continent? The correct answer is Expedition 0, not Expedition 100, as might be assumed. What is a Lumina? The correct answer identifies them as abilities internalized by using Pictos in battle repeatedly. These quiz questions demonstrate that even in a society facing extinction, education and historical knowledge are valued. The people of Lumière maintain their culture, their traditions, their intellectual pursuits, even as the countdown continues. Residential areas show the effects of 67 years of declining population. Some neighborhoods are partly empty, houses standing vacant because their owners were gommaged, and no one remains to claim them. The foster system has created unusual household compositions. 16-year-olds living with 28-year-olds who serve as surrogate parents, knowing they will be gommaged when their foster child reaches only 24. Workplaces reflect the accelerated life cycle. Apprentices as young as 7 or 8 work alongside teenagers who are already considered masters of their trades, having compressed decades of learning into a handful of years. Shops, smithies, clinics, and administrative buildings operate with skeleton crews, everyone performing multiple roles because there simply aren't enough people to specialize. The government structure, such as it is, focuses almost entirely on two goals: maintaining Lumière's infrastructure and organizing annual expeditions. Long-term planning beyond a few years has become impossible when no one knows if humanity will even exist in 33 years. Leadership focuses on immediate problems, practical concerns, keeping people fed and safe in the present rather than building toward any distant future. Religious or spiritual institutions, if they ever existed, appear absent from the game's depiction of Lumière. This could suggest that faith has been eroded by the Gommage's relentless certainty, or it might simply be that such institutions exist but are not relevant to the game's narrative focus. The absence is notable either way. In a city facing existential doom, there are no apparent temples, no priests or spiritual leaders offering comfort, no ceremonies beyond the secular Festival de l'Expedition. What Lumière does have is community resilience. People support each other, maintain relationships, find moments of happiness in terrible circumstances. Gustave and Sophie's relationship in the prologue exemplifies this. They broke up over irreconcilable differences about having children, but they spend Sophie's last day together anyway, choosing connection over bitterness, making peace before the end. This is the reality of Lumière, a city that has learned to live with death, that has adapted its entire society around an impossible countdown, that maintains humanity and compassion even while facing the extinction of everything they know. The continent, a surreal geography. When expeditions cross the ocean from Lumière, they arrive at the continent, the larger landmass from which Lumière was separated during the fracture. The continent is vast, varied, and profoundly strange, operating according to dream logic, where symbolic meaning can override physical law. Let us journey through its major regions, understanding both their geography and their significance. Spring Meadows serves as the landing zone for expeditions. At first glance, it appears almost welcoming. Rolling hills of painted grass in colors subtly wrong, wildflowers that glow faintly in twilight, twisted trees bearing fruit that emanates soft light, but the beauty is deceptive. Nevrons patrol the meadows, and the painted nature of everything creates subtle wrongness that grows more oppressive the longer one remains. This is where Expedition 33 makes landfall, and this is where they are immediately attacked by painted Renoir, leading a force of Nevrons. The ambush is devastating. Most of the expedition is killed in the first hour on the continent. Only Gustave, Lune, Ciel, and Maël survive the initial assault, scattered and separated, forced to find each other while fighting through hostile territory. The abandoned expeditioner camp in Spring Meadows contains supplies and a journal from Expedition 81 documenting the earliest stages of their journey and providing warnings about Nevron types commonly encountered in this region. This establishes the pattern that will repeat throughout the continent. Previous expeditions left markers, supplies, and information for those who follow. Flying Waters lives up to its name spectacularly. Waterfalls flow upward. Streams run through mid-air, suspended channels of water that can be crossed by leaping between floating platforms. The region challenges all assumptions about gravity and physics, forcing travelers to reconceptualize spatial relationships. Looking down while on upper platforms reveals the ground far below, making the experience vertiginous and disorienting. Nevrons here are adapted to three-dimensional combat, flying jellyfish creatures that spark with chromatic electricity, levitating mages that can attack from any angle, agile warriors that leap between platforms with inhuman precision. The Demenure, one of the white Nevrons who offers quests, can be found in Flying Waters. This creature seeks an intact mind to study, wanting to understand its own explosive nature rather than simply detonating mindlessly. Helping the Demenure reveals that even hostile-by-design creatures can seek purpose beyond their programming. The ancient sanctuary is a temple complex of unknown origin, its architecture clearly designed for worship, though what god or principle was venerated remains unclear. Massive statues line the approach, their features eroded or deliberately defaced, impossible to determine which. Inside, murals cover every surface, painted scenes depicting what might be history or prophecy, images that shift when not directly observed, figures that move through narrative sequences when viewed peripherally. This is where Expedition 33 first encounters the curator directly, where Maël discovers she can communicate with him when others cannot hear his voice. This unique connection hints at Maël's true nature, though the revelation won't come until much later. The curator appears as a translucent figure, barely visible, speaking words that fade like smoke, offering to help the expedition by upgrading their equipment and Luminas. The Gestral Village provides a stark contrast to the hostile environments elsewhere on the continent. This settlement of friendly dog-like humanoids operates as a functioning community with shops, housing, entertainment, and social structures. The Gestrals themselves are carefree and combat-loving, running a casino where travelers can gamble with Chroma, operating merchant stalls that sell weapons, and Pictos, offering challenges and duels to anyone confident in their abilities. The village represents stability in an unstable world. While Lumière declines under the pressure of the Gommage, the Gestrals maintain their culture. Their cycle of death and rebirth at the sacred river makes them effectively immortal, allowing them to persist indefinitely. However, this system has begun breaking down. There are not enough adult Gestrals to mentor all the Paintress child forms waiting to be reborn, creating a backlog of consciousness waiting for bodies. Paintress, Heskey's Nest, is a cave system where the legendary creature makes his home, guarded by Gestrals at the command of Golgra, their leader. Heskey himself is massive, a white, marshmallow-shaped being with stubby limbs and a perpetually lazy demeanor. He was Verso's favorite creation, modeled after his childhood stuffed toy, and imbued with power exceeding anything else in the canvas except the Dessendres themselves. Heskey possesses 4 magical rocks that grant him specific abilities. Flory allows him to swim while carrying passengers. Dory enables shattering painted coral reefs. Sori grants flight at incredible speeds. The 4th rock's power is not fully documented in available sources. With these abilities, Heskey becomes essential for reaching areas inaccessible to previous expeditions, explaining why Expedition 33 succeeds where others failed. Stone Wave Cliffs presents dramatic vertical terrain where wind and water have carved impossible formations. Stone appears to have frozen mid-crash, creating wave-like structures that defy gravity. Nevrons adapted to climbing and aerial combat make their homes here, diving from high perches to ambush travelers below. The Lampmaster boss guards this region, and defeating it grants access to Flory, Heskey's first rock, enabling water travel. This opens up vast new areas of the continent for exploration. The Forgotten Battlefield is exactly what its name suggests, the site of an ancient war, the ground littered with broken weapons, shattered armor, and bones of long-dead combatants. Fading men walk this battlefield, translucent echoes of warriors who died here, trapped in loops of violence, repeating their final moments endlessly. These ghostly figures provide lore if approached carefully. They describe battles from before the fracture, conflicts between factions whose purposes have been forgotten, wars that accomplished nothing, and left only these sorrowful remnants. The battlefield serves as a memento mori, a reminder that even in a painted world, death is real and suffering persists beyond life's end. Monaco's station offers a rest point established by the Gestral warrior Monaco, who serves painted Verso faithfully. Monaco is unique among Gestrals, having gained intelligence and sophistication beyond his species' norm. He collects feet, specifically the feet of powerful enemies he has defeated, using them both as trophies and as templates for his transformation abilities. Monaco can shift into the forms of enemies he has studied, copying their appearance and abilities perfectly. His collection of feet grants him an ever-expanding repertoire of transformations, making him one of the most versatile fighters available. When he joins Expedition 33 as a full party member, his abilities provide crucial flexibility in combat. Old Lumière represents perhaps the most significant location narratively. These are the ruins of what Lumière looked like before the fracture, the original city before Helene ripped the island portion away. Buildings stand half-collapsed, their architecture mirroring Lumière's but decayed, frozen in the moment of separation. Streets end abruptly in nothing. Structures that once connected to the flying island show their severed connections clearly. Fading men wander old Lumière citizens who died during the fracture, now existing as ghosts unable to move forward. They provide information if approached, describing life before the counting began, painting a picture of a world that was normal before grief and magic destroyed it. The manor stands intact in old Lumière, the Dessendre family home, recreated in perfect detail. Here, the expedition discovers the truth. Renoir's atelier contains paintings of the four axons, revealing his role as their creator. Journals and documents scattered throughout the manor explain the Dessendre family's history, the real-world origins of the canvas, the cosmic scope of the tragedy that ensnared everyone trapped within this painted world. Also, in old Lumière stands the Hauler, one of the four axons already dead when Expedition 33 arrives. The Hauler is a colossal humanoid figure with a small city built on its back, representing Clair Dessendre. It was slain by Simon, a warrior from an earlier expedition who received power from Clair herself to kill axons, though his reward was corruption that drove him to madness. Simon's golden swords remain embedded in the Hauler's corpse, monuments to victory that brought only suffering. The axons, symbolic colossi. The axons are four enormous beings created by Renoir Dessendre at some point after the fracture. They are not merely boss encounters or obstacles to overcome. They are symbolic representations, parables Renoir created to process his feelings about his family members. Understanding the axons provides deep insight into Renoir's psychology and the dynamics of the Dessendre family. The Hauler represents Clair Dessendre, the eldest daughter. She appears as a humanoid colossus with a small city built upon her back, symbolizing the burden Clair has carried as the eldest child. The city represents expectations, responsibilities, the weight of family duty that she has borne stoically. She holds an entire community on her shoulders, serving a function rather than living for herself. The Hauler's death before Expedition 33's arrival reflects Clair's state in the real world. She has become so consumed by the family's war with the Riders that she has lost herself, becoming a tool or weapon rather than a person. Her humanity has been buried beneath duty and rage. Simon's journals, found in Renoir's drafts, a post-game area, describe receiving power from Clair Dessendre herself to kill the axons and enter the Monolith. This suggests Clair actively worked to help Renoir, providing assistance in his efforts to end the canvas. However, the power she granted corrupted Simon, driving him mad, indicating that Clair's help came at a terrible cost. Sirène represents Aline Dessendre, the mother, known as She Who Plays with Wonder. Sirène appears as a dancer-like entity, performing eternally in a coliseum on her own island. Her movements, entrance, and mesmerize, beautiful but hollow, motion without deeper meaning. This reflects Renoir's perception of Aline, an artist so captivated by her own creations that she has become lost in them, performing for painted audiences rather than engaging with reality. The dance is exquisite but tragic, art divorced from genuine human connection. Sirène's combat mechanics involve charm effects that force expedition members to fight each other or stand paralyzed. This symbolizes how Aline's choices have turned the family against itself, how her retreat into the canvas has corrupted their relationships and set them into conflict. Defeating Sirène is one of two mandatory axon encounters in the main story. Her heart of pure chroma becomes part of the weapon the curator forges to pierce the paintress's barrier. The symbolism is pointed. Renoir uses representations of his family members to create tools that will harm another family member representation, demonstrating how the conflict has turned them all into weapons against each other. Visages represents Verso Dessendre, the dead son. Known as he who guards truth with lies, Visages appears as a massive entity wielding masks. Smaller figures called masks representing joy, anger, and sadness defend the main body. The Mask Keeper, a warrior-like figure commanding the masks, is referred to as the real axon, the core beneath the emotional shells. This layering reflects Verso's nature in the canvas. The real Verso is dead, but fragments remain in painted Verso, in the soul shard that persists. The masks represent different emotional lenses through which family members view him. Everyone remembers Verso differently because their memories are colored by grief and guilt and longing. No one can agree on who Verso truly was. Visage's island contains 3 veils, each dedicated to one of the emotional masks. Expedition 33 must traverse Joyful Veil, Anger Veil, and Sadness Veil, confronting different aspects of grief before reaching the axon itself. This journey mirrors the grief process, experiencing all the emotions before approaching acceptance. Defeating Visages is the second mandatory axon encounter. Its heart joins Suren's in creating the weapon needed to breach the barrier, requiring the expedition to symbolically destroy representations of both mother and son to reach the mother construct herself. The Reacher represents Alicia Dessendre, the youngest daughter and the survivor. Known as She Who Grasps the Sky, the Reacher is a colossal being that reaches upward endlessly, striving for something forever beyond reach. A smaller figure within the Reacher, possessing only one eye, represents Alicia's missing eye lost in the fire. The Reacher symbolizes Renoir's hope for Alicia to reach her potential despite trauma, but also the tragedy of that reaching. She strives upward, trying to grasp what can never be attained, the past before the fire, her brother returned, her family whole. She reaches for the sky, but the sky remains forever beyond her fingers. The Reacher is not typically fought in standard playthroughs. She stands in the northwestern region of the continent, visible but inaccessible until very late game or post-game content. Her purpose is more symbolic than combative, a reminder of potential unfulfilled, of damage that cannot be undone. All 4 axons possess hearts of pure chroma. According to lore found in expedition journals and dialogue with painted Verso, Renoir and Verso had hoped these hearts could be forged into a weapon strong enough to pierce the Paintress's barrier. Previous expeditions were directed to attempt axon slaying, but all failed until Expedition 33, who successfully defeat Suren and Visages. The Curator, Renoir's manifestation, uses the 2 axon hearts to forge the Heart Piercer, a weapon capable of cutting through the barrier protecting the Monolith. This weapon allows Expedition 33 to breach defenses that stopped every previous expedition, enabling them to finally confront the Paintress directly. The tragic irony is inescapable. Renoir uses pieces of his symbolic family to destroy other pieces, turning grief into weapon, making trauma into tool. The axons demonstrate how the conflict between him and Aline has consumed everyone, reducing his children to symbols, to obstacles, to resources to be harvested in service of ending a situation that should never have begun. Nevrons, the hostile painted, while Gestrals and Eschi are Verso's innocent childhood creations, Nevrons have a different and darker origin. They were created by Clair Dessendre, the eldest daughter after the fracture, in her deliberate attempt to tip the balance of power in her father's favor. Clair understood the true nature of the Gommage. Renoir was attempting to drain Aline's strength by erasing her creations, reducing the chroma available to her, weakening her ability to maintain and defend the canvas. Normally, when beings die in the canvas, their chroma dissipates and returns to the ambient pool that Aline can access and use. Clair designed Nevrons with a specific and insidious function. When they kill, they trap the victim's chroma within their own bodies instead of allowing it to dissipate. Every death caused by Nevrons reduces Aline's available power pool, accelerating Renoir's path to victory. This makes Nevrons more than mere enemies. They are weapons in a family war, tools designed to starve Aline of the resources she needs to protect her painted world. Nevrons come in dozens of varieties, each designed for specific combat roles. Let us catalog the major types. Chevaliers are night-themed Nevrons that come in multiple tiers. Ceramic Chevaliers serve as standard melee combatants with moderate durability. Steel Chevaliers are upgraded versions with metal armor and faster, more punishing strikes. Gold Chevaliers represent elite warriors, rare and powerful, with defenses that are nearly impenetrable without exploiting specific weaknesses. Jars are animated pottery creatures. Some contain lanterns that emit light useful for illumination or blinding. Others are hollow, their attacks creating strange echoing sounds that disorient. Their fragile-seeming nature is deceptive. They can be surprisingly resilient and dangerous. Demoners are living mines, creatures that explode when sufficiently threatened. Their detonations scatter sharp fragments across wide areas, making them dangerous even after death. Fighting multiple demoners simultaneously requires careful positioning to avoid chain reactions. Borgians are plant-based nevrons, masses of animated vines and thorns. They can regenerate from root systems, making them difficult to kill permanently unless the roots are destroyed. Some Borgians grow to enormous size, becoming boss-level threats. Sacopatates are bizarre creatures that come in several variants. Catapult Sacopatates launch themselves at enemies. Ranger Sacopatates attack from distance. Robust Sacopatates serve as tanks. The ultimate Sacopatate represents a particularly powerful version encountered in late-game areas. Cultists are humanoid nevrons organized into what appears to be a religious order. Chromatic cultists, Reaper cultists, and Greatsword cultists each have distinct fighting styles and abilities. Their organized nature suggests they possess more intelligence than most Nevron types. Elemental Nevrons manipulate specific energies. Chaliers radiate heat, Brulors control flames, Krulors manipulate some other elemental force. These Nevrons are often most vulnerable to opposing elements, ice against fire, for example. Musical Nevrons include troubadours who sing songs that buff allies or debuff enemies, and glissandos whose attacks incorporate sound-based mechanics. These Nevrons serve support roles, making them priority targets in group encounters. Specialty Nevrons fill unique niches. Ramasseurs collect fallen chroma and grow stronger as battles progress. Portiers guard passages and can summon reinforcements. Vaults serve as sentries with enhanced detection abilities. Petanks are rolling spheres with weak points only exposed briefly, requiring precise timing to damage effectively. Chromatic Nevrons appear as powered-up versions of standard types, encountered primarily in late-game and post-game areas. They possess enhanced stats and additional abilities, representing the strongest non-boss enemies in the game. And there are many more varieties beyond these, each with unique movesets, weaknesses, and strategies required to overcome them efficiently. However, not all Nevrons are hostile. The white Nevrons represent a special case that adds moral complexity to the Nevron conflict. White Nevrons appear pale, bleached of color, and they do not attack on sight. According to dialogue with Blanche, their leader, these are Nevrons that failed to fulfill their designed purpose. They questioned their role, sought meaning beyond combat and chroma theft, proved unable or unwilling to perform the function for which Clea created them. Clea ordered them destroyed as defective, but Blanche, who led them, refused. He protected his kind, hid them in remote locations throughout the continent, gave them permission to seek purpose through means other than violence. Expedition 33 encounters numerous white Nevrons throughout their journey. Each offers a quest, a task that gives them meaning. The jar in Spring Meadows wants light to see his mistress, requesting resin to illuminate his path. The Demonur in Flying Water seeks an intact mind to study, hoping to understand its own explosive nature. The Bourgeon wants skin to cover its exposed roots, seeking dignity in appearance. Hexka collects rock crystals, building something whose purpose remains unclear. Others have their own requests, their own searches for meaning in a world that designed them as disposable weapons. Completing all White Nevron quests grants an audience with Blanche in the fountain, a late-game area accessible only after acquiring Eski's flight ability. Blanche rewards those who showed kindness to his outcasts, giving 100 colors of Lumina, a substantial reward that helps maximize character builds. However, the game also offers the option to attack White Nevrons after completing their quests. They become powerful boss encounters, and defeating them grants valuable rewards including additional colors of lumina and rare crafting materials. This creates a moral choice: honor beings seeking purpose, treating them with dignity and leaving them alive, or exploit them for power, killing them for resources after using them. The white Nevrons raise profound questions about the nature of created beings. If something is designed as a weapon but refuses its purpose, does it deserve destruction or freedom? If art rebels against its artist's intention, does it become something more than art? The game does not provide easy answers, leaving the choice to players. Minor redigum monolith tower to the painted sky. The monolith dominates every vista in the canvas, visible from anywhere as a structure so massive it seems to curve with the horizon. It is impossibly tall, reaching heights that would be physically impossible in the real world, and impossibly thin, its proportions defying architecture and engineering. The monolith serves multiple purposes in the lore. It is Aline's fortress, the place where she concentrates her power, where the Paintress sits painting the warning numbers each year. Based on late-game revelations, it appears Renoir is imprisoned at the bottom of the monolith, unable to leave physically, manifesting elsewhere in the canvas, only through projection as the curator or as fading men. And it is a test, a final gauntlet for any expedition that reaches it. The monolith's exterior appears smooth and unclimbable, but at its base stands an entrance that opens for expeditions. They are invited in. Renoir wants them to reach him, wants them to succeed in their goal because their success serves his purpose of destroying the canvas and forcing Aileen to return to reality. Inside, the monolith is vast beyond its exterior dimensions, demonstrating space-folding properties inherent to painted reality. The interior consists of tainted versions of regions the expedition crossed to reach this point. Tainted spring meadows, tainted flying waters, tainted sanctuary, and so on. Each region is more dangerous than the original, populated by stronger Nevrons and new enemy types unique to the monolith. 2 new enemy types appear exclusively within the monolith: Clair and Obscur. Clair enemies are immune to light and physical attacks, vulnerable only to dark elemental damage. They represent one half of a dualistic concept: light taken to an extreme where it becomes blinding, hostile, rejecting all else. Obscure enemies reverse this pattern, immune to dark, vulnerable to light. They represent darkness taken to extreme, void that consumes, absence made aggressive. These enemies often appear in pairs, forcing expeditions to split their focus, using different damage types on different targets. They embody the game's title, Clair Obscur, representing how light and dark, good and evil, creation and destruction exist in opposition but also in balance. As expeditions ascend the monolith, they pass expedition flags left by previous groups. Most flags cluster in the lower levels. Many expeditions made it inside, but few made it far. Some exceptional groups left flags on upper tiers. Only Expedition 0 and Expedition 60 made it all the way to the summit. Expedition 60's flags tell a peculiar story. They appear at the monolith's peak, indicating the expedition reached the Paintress, but then flags appear again at the bottom, suggesting they descended after reaching the top. Fragmentary journal entries hint that Expedition 60 learned something crucial, that defeating the Paintress would doom Lumière rather than save it, that the numbers she painted were warnings rather than death sentences. Expedition 60 tried to return to Lumière to deliver this information, but they were gommaged before arrival, erased for having reached the marked age during their extended journey. Their knowledge died with them, leaving only flags and incomplete journals suggesting truth without explaining it fully. At the monolith summit, Expedition 33 finally confronts the Paintress directly. She sits enormous and still, her mannequin form dwarfing even the tallest axons, her empty face turned toward the number painted on the monolith's exterior. When the expedition attacks, she rises to defend herself. The battle occurs across 3 phases, escalating in desperation. Phase 1, the Paintress fights alone, using attacks like Rip Reality that damage multiple party members by tearing holes in the fabric of the canvas itself. Phase 2, a line manifests alongside the Paintress as the Curatress, 2 aspects of the same person fighting together. The Curatress wields an enormous brush, her giant brush of light attack dealing void damage, one of the rarest damage types in the game. Phase 3, the combat reaches its peak intensity, with both the Paintress and Curatress using their most powerful abilities in desperate defense. When the Paintress finally falls, when the fight ends, Expedition 33 expects victory. They expect the Gommage to end, Lumière to be saved, the curse lifted. Instead, catastrophe occurs. The Paintress's death removes the last protection Aline was providing. Without her painting the warning numbers, without her slowing Renoir's progress, the Gommage accelerates instantly. Everyone in Lumière is erased in a single moment. Every inhabitant, every citizen, every soul living on the island vanishes, turning to smoke and flower petals simultaneously. Gustave, Luna, Ciel, Maël, and all the companions who have journeyed together are Gommage. Only 3 survive: Verso, whose immortality protects him, Monaco, and Esquisse, who were not Aline's creations and thus are immune to Renoir's erasure. This is the truth the game has been building toward. There was never a way to save Lumière through violence. The Paintress was not the villain prolonging suffering, but the desperate mother doing the only thing she could to slow inevitable destruction, buying time through her warning countdown. And every expedition, all 67 years of sacrifice, were not heroes' journeys toward salvation, but offerings that bought temporary delay, each doomed group contributing to understanding that would eventually lead to, what? An ending, yes, but not the one anyone hoped for. Minor Groovy's tour, the Dessendre family revealed. With the Paintress defeated and the truth impossible to ignore, we must now understand each member of the Dessendre family completely, who they truly are, what they want, and why this conflict could never have a simple resolution. Renoir Dessendre, husband and father, is antagonist only from Aline's perspective within the canvas. His manifestation as the curator helped Expedition 33 throughout their journey, upgrading their weapons, strengthening their Pictos and Luminas, guiding them toward success, because their success served his ultimate goal: destroy the canvas, force Aline to return to reality, save his wife from the deterioration caused by prolonged canvas habitation. In the real world, years have passed since Aline entered Verso's canvas. She has aged rapidly, her body and mind deteriorating from what some might call painter's disease, physical and psychological damage from spending too long in created realities. Her hair has gone white, her face has become gaunt, her mind teeters on the edge of madness. Renoir loves his wife desperately. He wants her back, but she refuses to leave, and he lacks the power to force her out while she actively resists. So he does the only thing he can, slowly destroys what she loves, making the canvas uninhabitable, betting that eventually she will choose to leave rather than watch everything burn. But this strategy requires killing thousands of innocent beings, people who are genuinely alive regardless of being painted, who possess thoughts and feelings and relationships, who did nothing to deserve erasure. Renoir understands this. He feels the weight of every death, but he has already lost his son. He will not lose his wife as well, even if saving her means committing what amounts to genocide, even if the price is destroying an entire world. His position is simultaneously sympathetic and monstrous. He is a grieving husband trying to save his wife from herself, and he is also a mass murderer willing to erase thousands of people to achieve his goal. Both things are true. Aline Dessendre, wife and mother, could not accept Verso's death. Her grief was absolute, consuming, transforming into obsession and delusion. When she discovered the soul fragment in his canvas, she seized upon it, building a fantasy where her son still lived, where her family remained whole, where tragedy could be painted over with enough artistic skill and enough refusal to accept reality. She created painted versions of everyone, building a substitute family that would never leave, never die, never disappoint. She could control everything in the canvas, shape it to perfection, and she chose that false perfection over messy reality with its painful truths and impossible grief. But some buried part of her knew what she was doing was wrong. Some awareness understood she was hurting her real family, abandoning her surviving daughters to deal with grief alone while she hid in delusion. The paintress was never meant to harm anyone. The numbers she painted were warnings, countdown timers, showing how many more years remained before Renoir's power grew strong enough to erase everything at once. Aline hoped that warnings would help, that buying time through the Gommage's slow progression would allow some solution to emerge. But nothing changed. Year after year she painted warnings. Year after year Renoir continued his slow erasure, and through it all Aline remained in the canvas, her mind fragmenting under the weight of prolonged habitation and sustained grief. By the time Expedition 33 confronts her, Aline barely remembers herself. The curatoress who manifests alongside the paintress seems confused, distrustful even of painted verso, her own beloved creation, suggesting severe mental deterioration. Painted verso is not the real verso, but he contains enough of the real verso's soul fragment to possess genuine consciousness and independent will. He understands what he is, art creation, not truly alive in the way naturally born beings are alive, and he hates his existence. He has lived 67 years watching Eileen retreat further into madness, watching Renoir slowly destroy everything, watching expedition after expedition arrive with hope and die in despair. He is tired. He wants it to end. He works with Renoir, helping expeditions reach the Monolith, guiding them toward success, betraying Aileen because he believes destroying the canvas is mercy. Better to end it cleanly than prolong this slow torture. Better to free Aileen from her delusion, even if it means his own erasure. But painted verso also holds a hope, fragile and probably futile. Maybe if the canvas is destroyed properly, the soul fragment he contains might return to wherever the real verso went after death. Maybe erasure for him means reunion. Maybe there is escape from being art. Clair Dessendre, eldest daughter, attempted to help her father by creating the Nevrons. Her chroma trapping design accelerated Alan's defeat, but it also made the continent nearly uninhabitable, filled it with hostile creatures that killed countless innocents, prevented expeditions from progressing efficiently. Her solution caused as much harm as it prevented. She acted from duty and grief, wanting her mother back, wanting the family restored, but her help proved double-edged, and she carries that guilt. Evidence suggests she eventually tried to help end the situation more directly. Simon's journals indicate Clair granted him power to slay Axons and reach the Monolith, though this power corrupted him, drove him mad, making her help once again a source of suffering. Alicia Dessendre, youngest daughter and survivor of the fire, enters the canvas in Monolith year 49 at Clair's urging. She manifests as male, a 16-year-old girl with no memory of her true identity or origins. The real Alicia is scarred from the fire, half blind, mute. She carries crushing guilt, believing Verso died because of her, that if she had been more careful or escaped on her own, he would still be alive. When Clair suggests entering the canvas to end the conflict by force, Alicia sees it as redemption, a way to save her mother, to make Verso's death meaningful, to do something that matters. But when she enters, Alicia's power overwhelms her. Instead of being able to confront her mother, Alicia is stripped of memories and reborn as Maëlle, losing herself in the process. Only after the Paintress's defeat, after Lumière's erasure, does Maëlle regain her memories and understand who she truly is. This family drama, grief upon grief, good intentions causing harm, love twisted into weapons, is the engine driving the entire conflict. They are not villains despite the horror they create. They are people destroyed by tragedy, making terrible choices from understandable motivations, hurting others while desperately trying to save each other. After the Paintress falls and Lumière is erased, Renoir manifests fully within the canvas for the first time. He no longer needs to hide as the curator or project is fading men. He appears as himself, an old man worn by grief and determination, ready to complete what he started, destroy the canvas entirely, collapse the dimension, force everyone still inside to return to reality. For Maëlle, who now remembers she is Alicia, this means returning to the real world, scarred and mute but alive, rejoining her father and sister. For Verso, even the painted version, this means erasure, finally released from artificial existence. For everyone, already gommaged, Gustave, Lune, Ciel, and all the inhabitants of Lumière, this confirms they were always doomed, never truly alive, always just art that would eventually end. But Aline's death has left the canvas without a master. It exists but drifts unstable, and it needs a painter to sustain it. Maëlle has the skill. She is a Dessendre, trained by Clair and Aline. She has the power to claim the canvas, to restore Lumière, to bring back everyone who was erased. But doing so means staying in the canvas forever, abandoning the real world, choosing the same delusion her mother chose. It means becoming what Eileen became, a painter lost in her own creation, slowly deteriorating, eventually going mad. The game presents two endings based on this impossible choice. A life to love, Maëlle lets Renoir destroy the canvas. She watches painted Verso embrace Monaco and Eschi one final time, the three friends saying farewell as they fade into nothing. The painted world dissolves back into raw chroma. The dimension collapses. She returns to early 20th century Paris, to her family standing over Verso's grave. Aileen holds Renoir, the two having reconciled in shared grief. Clea stands with them, and Alicia, scarred and silent, holds Eschi's stuffed toy, the original that inspired Verso's creation. Alone, she has a vision. The members of Expedition 33 appear as ghosts or memories. Maëlle, Gustave, Lune, Ciel, Verso, Monaco, Eschi, all waving farewell, smiling, accepting their fate. They existed. For a time, they lived. That has to be enough. A life to paint. Maëlle refuses to let the canvas die. She seizes control, pushing Renoir back, claiming the dimension as her own. She restores Lumière, bringing back its inhabitants. She repairs the continent. She becomes the new Paintress, guardian of this world, maintaining it through constant chroma expenditure and effort. Lune, Ciel, Gustave, and everyone else live again, but they live in a world sustained by Alicia's sacrifice, by her choice to become what her mother was. Years pass in the real world. Renoir waits, hoping, but eventually must accept that he has lost his daughter the same way he lost his son, to art, to creation, to painted worlds that substitute for real ones. In the canvas, Maëlle lives as herself and as Alicia simultaneously, holding both identities, aging slowly as the canvas drains her, knowing she repeats her mother's mistake, but unwilling to let her friends cease existing. The music Clair Obscur plays a rearrangement of Lumière, but with ominous undertones suggesting this choice may not lead where she hopes. Neither ending is entirely happy or entirely sad. Both carry weight and consequence. The game does not judge the choice, only presents it and allows players to decide what matters more, accepting painful reality or preserving beautiful illusion. Both themes and meanings. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 explores themes that resonate beyond its fantasy setting, grief and its consequences. Aline's inability to process Verso's death creates disaster for thousands. Her grief is understandable, even sympathetic, but its effects are monstrous. The game does not condemn her for grieving, but does not excuse the harm her refusal to heal causes. The nature of art and reality. Are painted beings real? They think, feel, suffer, experience joy, they form relationships, make choices, grow and change, but they are also literally art, created things, dependent on their creator. The game refuses easy answers. Painted beings are as real as anyone. But they are also fundamentally different from naturally evolved life, and that difference matters. The ethics of creation. Painters create conscious beings who live according to the painter's will. Is this ethical? Do creators have responsibility to their creations? Can art consent to its existence? The game explores these questions through the Gestrals created knowing what they were, seemingly content, and the humans of Lumière created deceived, suffering upon revelation. The price of refusing to let go. Both Renoir and Aline refused to let go, he of his wife, she of her son. Their mutual refusal to accept loss creates the entire conflict, dooms thousands, threatens to destroy everything. The game suggests that sometimes letting go is both the hardest and most necessary choice. Impossible choices. Expedition 33 faces situations where no option is good. Kill the Paintress and doom Lumière? Let her live and allow the Gommage to continue. Destroy the canvas and erase everyone? Preserve the canvas and abandon reality? The game does not pretend these choices have right answers, only consequences that must be endured. Miner's conclusion, and so we reach the end of our chronicle. Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, is a game about art, grief, and the weight of choices made in impossible circumstances. It is a world painted by trauma, maintained through desperation, populated by beings who must negotiate what it means to be real when reality itself is questioned. The expeditions are heroic, not because they save the world, but because they try despite knowing failure is likely. They walk toward doom with open eyes, leaving markers for those who follow, sacrificing themselves so others might progress farther. The Dessendre family are not villains despite the horror they create. They are people destroyed by grief, making terrible choices from understandable motivations, hurting others while trying to save themselves. The inhabitants of the canvas are real enough for their suffering to matter, real enough for their choices to have weight, real enough that their erasure constitutes genuine tragedy. This lore is dense with meaning, heavy with implication, rich with details that reward examination. Every journal adds depth, every conversation expands understanding, every painted detail reveals more about the family whose conflict shaped this world. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the lore of Clair Obscur Expedition 33, please like and subscribe to Daily Lore with Grandpa Ben. Until next time, for those who come after.